Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Swati and I'm here to discuss Module 5, and I chose my building of Schilling Elementary to look at. To give you a bit of information about Schilling Elementary as far as what type of school we are, an elementary building. We serve kindergartners through 5th grade, but we also have one low incidence special education preschool classroom that serves around 20 students between AM and PM classroom. And those students are included in the 420 students that are enrolled, and Schilling is a Title I school. So when I went and looked at our report card, our Kansas State report card, I found that we had some factors that could have impacted our student performance as a building level. And so some of those things were the economically disadvantaged population within my building, our students with disabilities, our ELL population, and also migrant students. And so I looked at those a little closely. I decided to focus in on 3 areas: economically disadvantaged, ELL population, and then students with disabilities. Our migrant population fluctuates from year to year, and so this past year we just didn't have as many, and so I don't believe that truly made a big enough impact to really look at it. But our economically disadvantaged population, of our total attendance, 84.05% fall into economically disadvantaged category. Our ELL population is 33.5%, and our students with disabilities are 14.52%. So to compare that with the state demographics, at Schilling Elementary, like I said, we're at about 84% economically disadvantaged, and statewide, that percentage is right around 49%. So we have quite a higher percentage within our building than the state would have total. ELL population is about 33.57% at Schilling, and then statewide it's about 10.13%. Students with disabilities hover around 14.52%, and statewide about 14.15%. So those numbers are very similar. Those percentages are very similar. As far as the impact on math and ELA performance, what I looked at were students that were falling within the level 1 category, which would be below grade level, and level 2, which would be grade level work, but not at the rigor, or the expectations are not high enough quite yet. And so for economically disadvantaged, we had in Schilling 27% of that group performed at level 1 and 44% performed at level 2. For ELA, it was almost 30% performing in level 1, and then 35%, almost 36% performing in level 2. Our ELL population for math performing in level 1 was 35%, and math level 2 was 48%. For ELA, 30% were performing in level 1, and level 2 we had 42%. Our students with disabilities performing at level 1 was 71%, which is quite high, but these are students that have a diagnosed disability, and many of those are going to be learning disabled or intellectually disabled. Those things will obviously impact the ability to perform grade level work. And then math at level 2, we had almost 18% of that population were performing at level 2. For ELA, 71% again, and then performing at level 2, we had 14%. So when I look at the differences between that information from Schilling and then the state performance within these subgroups, really I found that the only subgroup that had a significant difference between the percentage of students performing at that level 1 at Schilling Elementary and the percentage performing at level 1 statewide was our students with disabilities. And so we found that we had 10.75% more students in level 1 than the state average, and ELA had 13.48% more than the state in level 1. So what does this tell us? as far as our economically disadvantaged population, while our percentage is higher than the state percentage as far as demographics, those students still appear to be performing similar to other students in the economically disadvantaged category statewide. And same thing with ELL. Our ELL population seems to be higher than the state, but those students are performing like other ELL students across the state. And now our students with disability, the data did reveal that we do have some significantly more students performing at level 1 than students with disabilities statewide performing at level 1. So that's something that, would be a piece of data that I would want to look on how can we bring that number up. And so possible ways to improve those outcomes, I would say first to ensure that our students with disabilities are being taught by highly qualified and effective special education and support staff. And I think it's important not just to hire highly qualified instructors, but to ensure that they're effective at their job. And so that can be done through mentor programs and through observations and feedbacks and training and lots of different ways to ensure that your highly qualified staff is also effective at their job, which will improve outcomes for students with disabilities. Secondly, to make sure that these students are receiving the type of services that they need, whether it's more resource room time, more in-class time, or in-class time with supports, and appropriate accommodations, those types of things, in order to lastly ensure that their goals and expectations are appropriately ambitious and their objectives are challenging enough to promote growth. And I take those terms from the recent Supreme Court decision, Andrew F. versus Douglas County School District, that ruled in favor of a higher standard of education for students with disability. And so I think appropriately ambitious is a good thing to really work towards to ensure that students are growing. It's not enough just to expect the minimum, but that we ensure that we're trying to expect as much as we can and make sure that we're still providing challenging goals for these students to try and reach. I think when I looked at all of this data, that because I'm come from a special education background, that was where I saw that data and really wanted to focus in on that. I think that it's interesting to look at some of this stuff and then see how you can make a plan to improve that. And I think that as future building administrators, that's something that we will be doing continuously. Thanks, everyone.